Oh, I really thought that was gonna make a sound. I am celebrating because I have finished the timeline and the outline for A Closet Full of Cauldrons. Isn't she beautiful? Oh my god. Color-coded. Gorgeous. Gorgeous! Everything is in it. All of the clues I needed, the background of the characters, why they act the way they do, if they're gonna show up in other books, silly inside jokes they have that's gonna circle back around at the very end. I have it all. Okay, and that is very new for me. I have outlined stuff in the past, and I do usually outline after I've done the first draft or my zero draft, but like not to this extent. Not with like the dates and times like fully figured out. And to be fair, for this project, I probably needed that. I am working on A Closet Full of Cauldrons. It's a cozy mystery and it takes place within like a week of time. Some of the stuff that happens before the story is like a little bit earlier than that, but the actual context of like what's going to show up on the page is really only a week. There's not a lot of time for the mayhem to ensue. And every little piece is important, as stories are, as mysteries are. And I just can't believe I have it all down. Hold on, I gotta do this again even though there was no sound. Here's the thing. I did not love doing this. Oh, yes, that is how I felt. I don't know if that picked up on Buffy's side. I used to hear people say that they loved to have written. They didn't necessarily love writing. They loved having done it. And I could never relate because I absolutely adore the act of writing. I like the act of clacking on the keys. I like, you know, the way the pen kind of scrolls across the page. I like imagining in that moment and seeing these stories sort of unfold before my eyes and doing my best to just like keep up with it. And I love writing. I love getting in that zone. I feel like that's where the magic of writing just sings for me. Just like it hits that note and it's so perfect during the act of writing, during the act of drafting. I am learning to get there with revision, but certainly for drafting, it has always made sense for me. You know, it was my safe space when I was in school and I needed to distract myself. Like there's just so much about the act of writing that I adore. So I never understood when people are like, I love to have done it, but I do not like doing it. They liked creating the stories, but only so much as the work was then done. But now I understand. Now I get it, because I did not really like any moment of this. I did not like having to figure out the exact time something would happen in the exact place and if they moved from place to place. I didn't like to think about all the characters that needed to be there. I didn't really enjoy having to nail down the clues exactly as they would transpire. And I didn't really like thinking of my story in terms of these like bits and bobs, like all the little pieces that make up a story, but seeing it deconstructed sort of in this way. But holy hell, do I love to have it done. Holy shit. This is awesome. This is so cool. I get it now. Like I get it. For the first time, I get it. Having this done makes me feel like a superhero. Like I feel unstoppable right now. This is the weirdest high I've ever had. Like I don't have to wonder going into the next draft if it's gonna make sense. It fucking makes sense. All of the clues are there. It's there. The motivations are there. All the dynamics are figured out. Everything is there. I could still like mess up on page. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it's gonna be perfect after this draft. It won't be. I have to tinker with my words. That's how I do it. But like, there's no plot holes. At least I don't think so. I've looked at this for the fucking weeks it has taken me to do it. And I have rearranged things and it fits. It works. And I have completed the puzzle now. That's what it is. They were all pieces before and now I have put it together. Of course I still need feedback. I need to do the draft. I need to make it readable before I get feedback and like verify that from someone other than my brain. But like, I don't know that I've ever had this at this stage. This feeling is usually what I get way down the line. And it's just so interesting. It is so interesting. This sort of new feeling. This new feeling that this new process has brought me. This new understanding even. And it's interesting because obviously I've heard people talk about this level of outlining and timelining before. I've had this timeline software for a while and I've used it but never like to the full extent. I usually used it when I was confused. The problem with that is that I would continue just drafting as I like to do because I think it's so fun, because I love that magic. But then I wouldn't realize that I'd stumbled into a problem until I'd done a lot of the work. Fucking now, I've done the work in advance. I still needed the zero draft. I always feel like I need to make this clear. I still need to write my characters, to know my characters, but now that I know them, I can do this stage, and I think it's really gonna cut down on the number of drafts I have to do. And I've tried it before. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I've tried this before. I genuinely think there's been a couple times where I've tried it in full. I actually recently tried it for Project Death, and it was really hard to push past inputting fucking everything when I'm on the 5th draft of something. And yeah, I just had a hard time making myself do this stage of it because I just don't enjoy doing it. But I love having it done. I love having it done. It's funny because this lesson coincides with a hobby I've taken up, and I've learned a new term, okay? At least in crochet, potentially like knitting and knitwork as a whole, there's this idea of frogging, which basically just means taking the string and pulling it all the way back to the point that you messed up. Row House Yarn, as pulled up by Google, tells me that it's because you rip it, which reminded someone of ribbit, and thus frogging was born. That makes so much sense to me. And did I have to do it several times as I am learning? Yes. One of the other lessons I've learned when hanging out in my crochet subreddits is that there is like philosophy in this sort of like, I don't know if it's necessarily like fabric work, yarn work, or whatever, like I'm still learning terms. But someone said in a lot of different cultures there's this idea that nothing can be perfect because perfect is reserved for God or a godlike entity, or however you want to take it, or because like there's no such thing as perfect, like only nature is perfect kind of thing, which I also love. As someone who's struggled with perfectionism, not just in like writing, but just in general in life, being the oldest born and only daughter, you know, all that kind of fun stuff. It's been really nice for me to create other things and learn more about a different community than just writing, and seeing how they handle things like imperfection, what it means to follow a pattern, what it takes to create your own patterns, when it's important to finish something so that you know you can do it. This is my first ever granny square, and it's not perfect, but it is done. But then also when it's important to frog and start over. And I talked about this when I was on Phoebe's channel and during her stream, and Becca was in the comments, and it's just nice in a lot of ways to have something that I can complete and like wear and or use, and just the satisfaction I get out of finishing something, but also something that doesn't take years like a novel does. Becca said that that's why she does a lot of sewing, and Phoebe said that that's why she has gotten really into like short stories and flash fiction, and a bunch of people were saying how satisfying that is, the sort of process of finishing a short work and then submitting it, getting a response, like all of it just moves so much faster. As someone who came from a novel world and didn't have a sort of fast creativity, nothing that like innately spoke to me in the same way, I feel like there's just been a lot of like learning lessons in what shorter works of anything could potentially do for me. And so this actually works perfectly in with this new talking about short-term things, but I'm gonna do a longer form experiment. I'm gonna do about a 10-week experiment that I've talked about a little bit on Patreon, but this idea of like assigning myself a sort of syllabus and like courses. One of them is just going to be about submitting short fiction, and I'm really excited for that, and I'm intrigued to see how that goes. So yeah, just trying and starting a lot of new things, trying new methods, and like trying new creative outlets, which is really cool. Guess that's all I really have for this video, other than one last time. This video in itself is actually my attempt at celebrating like little victories more, even though this actually feels like quite a big victory. Celebrating victories. You know what? We're not gonna specify. Small, large, ginormous. They're all worth celebrating, and I frankly don't do that enough, and I'm trying to get better at it. So this was the first step. Just having a little moment where I'm like, fuck yeah, I did it. Please do comment down below and actually let me know what is a fuck yeah I did it moment that you've had recently. I think I would just love to revel and that for a little bit. And also, of course, let me know if you've started any new hobbies. I'd love to discover more. I'd love to play around with new things. Yes. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all very soon with a new video. Bye!